Meteorite struck the Nevada desert with enough force to register on seismographs in Los Angeles. Zed Troy watched the impact from his cabin's porch, whiskey glass frozen halfway to his lips. The object hadn't burned up on entry. Unusual. More unusual still was how it had seemed to change direction mid-fall. "Not a meteor," he muttered, setting down his glass. His enhanced vision picked out details no normal human could see, geometric patterns on the falling object's surface, the distinctive pulse of failing energy shields. A ship. And it was coming down hard. Zed's muscles coiled with inhuman strength as he vaulted over the porch railing. The impact site was 3 miles away, but distance meant little to someone who could outrun a bullet. The desert landscape blurred around him as he ran, sand and scrub brush becoming streaks of beige and green. The crash site was still burning when he arrived. Twisted metal fragments littered a quarter-mile radius, some still glowing red-hot. The main hull had carved a deep trench through the earth, ending in a smoking crater. That's when he heard it, a soft moan carried on the wind. "Hello?" Zed called out, picking his way through the wreckage. "Anyone alive in there?" Another sound, definitely a woman's voice, speaking in a language he'd never heard before. It came from a partially intact section of the ship's cockpit. Zed ripped away a panel of strange metallic alloy like it was tin foil. Inside, bathed in the flickering light of dying control panels, lay the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Her skin was a deep, mesmerizing azure, marked with subtle patterns that seemed to shift in the uneven light. Silver eyes met his, wide with pain and something else. Recognition. Her perfectly proportioned figure was wrapped in what appeared to be ceremonial armor, now cracked and stained with silvery blood. "Hold on," Zed said, reaching for her. "I'll get you out." The woman's hand shot up, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. "No," she gasped in accented English. "You must not. The law." "You're bleeding out," Zed countered. "Law can wait." Before she could protest further, he scooped her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, despite the armor. Her skin radiated an otherworldly warmth against his chest. The moment he lifted her clear of the wreckage, something changed. A pulse of energy passed between them, making his heart stutter and his vision blur. The woman in his arms went rigid, her silver eyes widening in what looked like horror. "No," she whispered, "by the ancient compact. You have claimed me." "Claimed you?" Zed frowned. "Lady, I'm just trying to help." She shook her head, beautiful features twisting in frustration. "You don't understand. I am Wynn, Queen of the North Empire, and by saving my life you have become—" She broke off, coughing up silver fluid. "Become what?" Wynn's eyes locked onto his, a mixture of resignation and defiance in their metallic depths. "My consort, my protector, my—" She swallowed hard. "My husband." Zed almost dropped her. Almost. "Your what?" A ghost of a smile touched Wynn's blue lips. "Is that not how your people say it? Perhaps mate would be more accurate. Or king claimant." Her voice weakened. "Though it matters little if I bleed out here." She was right. The silver blood was flowing faster now. Zed could feel it soaking through his shirt where he held her. "My cabin's a few miles away. Medical supplies there." He adjusted his grip. Discussion of unexpected marriages can wait. "You move quickly," Wynn observed, her head lolling against his shoulder as he began to run. "For a human." "Not human," Zed corrected automatically, then frowned. He'd never admitted that to anyone before. Something about her presence made him want to be honest. "No," she agreed softly. "You're not." They reached his cabin in seconds. Zed kicked the door open, laying Wynn carefully on his couch. The silver blood stood out starkly against the worn leather. "Where's the worst injury?" he asked, grabbing his medical kit. Wynn's fingers fumbled with clasps on her armor. Here, lower abdomen. But your medicines won't. These aren't ordinary medicines. Zed helped her remove the damaged chest piece, revealing a deep gash across her midsection. The wound seemed to shimmer, edges pulsing with a faint light. What the hell? Quantum blade, Wynn explained through gritted teeth. It's still destabilizing the tissue. Normal healing impossible until energy signature neutralized. Zed's hands hovered over the wound. How do we neutralize it? We don't. Only a Narth healer could. She broke off, gasping as Zed's fingers made contact with her skin. Energy crackled between them. The wound's shimmer intensified, then began to fade. Wynn stared at him in shock. Impossible, she breathed. You're channeling stabilizing energy, but only the royal bloodline can. I'm full of surprises. Zed focused on the strange power flowing through him. It felt natural, like remembering how to ride a bike. But he'd never done anything like this before. Had he? The wound sealed itself under his touch, leaving unblemished blue skin behind. Wynn sat up slowly, pressing her own hand to the healed area. You've done more than claim the throne, she said. You've proven yourself worthy of it. The ancient power responds to you. About that claiming business, Zed started, but movement outside caught his attention. His enhanced hearing picked up the whisper of boots on sand, the subtle click of weapons being primed. Wynn heard it too. Her face hardened. They've found us already. Morvex assassins. Friends of yours? The ones who shot down my ship. She tried to stand but swayed dangerously. They'll kill us both. How many? Standard kill team is 6, elite warriors, quantum weapons. She caught his arm. You don't understand. They're Narth, superhuman by your standards. Zed helped her to the bedroom, easing her onto the bed. Stay here. You can't fight them alone. Watch me. He turned to leave, then paused. Quick question. These guys, they're trying to kill my wife, right? Despite the situation, Wynn's silver eyes widened at his choice of words. Technically, yes. Good. Zed's smile was predatory. That makes this simple. He stepped onto the porch just as the first assassin emerged from the desert shadows. The warrior was tall, blue-skinned like Wynn, wearing sleek black armor that seemed to absorb light. The queen, the assassin demanded in heavily accented English. Surrender her, and you may live. Zed cracked his neck. Counteroffer. Leave now, and you may live. 5 more figures materialized from the darkness, weapons humming with deadly energy. Their leader laughed. You don't understand what you face, human. No, Zed agreed pleasantly. You don't understand what you face. The first quantum blast would have vaporized a normal person. Zed caught it in his bare hand, the deadly energy swirling like a miniature star before he crushed it out of existence. The assassins froze. My turn, said Zed. What followed was pure chaos. Zed moved faster than thought, his fists breaking through supposedly impenetrable armor like paper. He dodged quantum bolts that should have been impossible to avoid appearing behind his attackers as if by magic. 2 assassins down in the first 3 seconds. A third tried to rush him with an energy blade. Zed caught the weapon, snapped it, and used the broken handle to knock its wielder unconscious. The remaining 3 spread out, trying to surround him. Their leader barked orders in the Narth language. Energy weapons reconfigured, humming at a different frequency. Maximum dispersal, the leader shouted. No way to dodge. Zed didn't dodge. He simply wasn't there when they fired. The assassin's weapons exploded in their hands as he appeared in their midst. I warned you, he said softly. The fight ended seconds later. 6 elite Narth warriors lay unconscious in the desert sand. Zed hadn't even broken a sweat. He turned to find Wynne standing in the doorway, staring at him with an expression that mixed awe, fear, and something else entirely. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Zed Troy." He stepped over an unconscious assassin. "Former Special Forces, current desert hermit, apparently your new husband." He reached her side. "Though we should probably talk about that last part." Wynne's hand touched his chest, where his shirt was still stained with her silver blood. "No one moves like that. No one can channel the royal energy. No human, no Narth." Her eyes widened. Unless. The prophecy," she breathed. "The one who would come from beyond, bearing the power of the ancients. The lost one who would return to claim." She swayed suddenly. Zed caught her. "You need rest. Prophecies can wait." "No, you don't understand." Her fingers clutched his shirt. "If you are who I think you are, then Morvek won't stop. He'll bring armies. He'll burn this world to find us." "Let him try. You would risk your planet. I'd risk a lot more to keep you safe." The words surprised him as much as her, but they felt true. Wynne studied his face. "You feel it too, don't you? The connection between us. It's not just the claiming ritual." "I feel something." Zed helped her back inside. "Like I've known you before. Like I should remember." "Then it's true." Wynne's silver eyes seemed to glow in the cabin's dim light. "You're not just my claimant. You're him, the forgotten god who created our empire." "God?" Zed laughed, but it sounded hollow even to him. "I think blood loss is making you delirious." Wynne's expression remained serious. "You healed quantum damage with a touch. You move faster than our best warriors. The ancient power responds to you." "I'm different," he admitted. "Always have been. Doesn't make me a god." Before Wynne could argue further, a high-pitched whine filled the air. They both turned toward the window. A massive shadow was descending from the clouds. "Transport ship," Wynne breathed. "Morvek sent reinforcements." The ship was easily the size of a football field, its dark hull bristling with weapons. Searchlights stabbed down from its belly, sweeping across the desert. "We need to move," Zed said. "Now." "Wait." Wynne pressed something into his hand, a small crystal that pulsed with inner light. "Royal beacon. It will summon loyal forces, but it will take time." "How much time?" "Hours, perhaps. If any resistance ships are near enough to—" She stumbled, still weak from her injuries. Zed caught her again, noticing how perfectly she fit against him. The contact sent another surge of that strange energy through them both. Wynne gasped, softly, her silver eyes dilating. "The bond," she whispered. "It's growing stronger." "Is that good or bad?" "Both." Her fingers traced the line of his jaw, leaving tingles in their wake. "It means I couldn't leave you now even if I wanted to." The transport ship's engines grew louder. Searchlights found the unconscious assassins outside. "We need transport," Wynne said. "Somewhere to hide until help arrives." Zed grinned. "I might have something." He led her to what looked like an ordinary storage shed behind the cabin. Inside, hidden under a tarp, was a sleek black motorcycle. "Custom build," he explained, throwing one leg over the seat. 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. Military-grade stealth coating. "Primitive," Wynne observed, but there was a glimmer of excitement in her eyes. "But serviceable." She climbed on behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. The contact sent another jolt through them both. Zed tried to ignore how good it felt having her pressed against his back. "Hold tight, Your Majesty." They roared out of the shed just as plasma bolts began raining from the transport ship. Zed weaved between the explosions, pushing the bike to speeds that should have torn it apart. Wynne clung to him, her face buried against his shoulder. "They're launching interceptors," she shouted over the wind. 3 smaller craft detached from the transport ship, their engines howling as they gave chase. More plasma fire lit up the night behind them. "Can your bike outrun those?" Wynn asked. "No," Zed admitted, "but I know these canyons better than they do." He turned sharply, heading for a maze of narrow ravines he used for training runs. The bike screamed in protest as he pushed it harder, the desert becoming a blur around them. The interceptors followed, but their larger size made them clumsy in the tight spaces. One clipped a wall and spiraled away in flames. Another pulled up rather than risk the narrowing passage. The third stayed on their tail, its pilot more skilled or more desperate than the others. Plasma bolts struck closer and closer. "Hold on!" Zed called. He gunned the engine toward what appeared to be a solid rock wall. Wynn's arms tightened around him. "Zed!" At the last possible moment, he swerved into a hidden crevice, a shortcut he'd discovered years ago. The interceptor shot past their hiding spot, unable to match their maneuver. They emerged on the other side of the ridge. The transport ship was now just a distant shadow against the stars. That was... Wynn paused, searching for the word. "Impressive. Thanks. Where to now?" "We need somewhere secure. Somewhere they won't think to look for royalty." Zed considered their options. "I know a place. Old military bunker about 50 miles east, completely off the grid." "You trust this location?" "I trust the guy who owns it. Former commanding officer. He knows what I am, or at least knows I'm different. He'll help." Wynn was quiet for a moment, her cheek resting against his back. "You've spent your whole life hiding what you are, haven't you? Easier that way. And now? Now?" Zed glanced at the crystal beacon still clutched in his hand, pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. "Now I'm apparently married to an alien queen and being hunted by assassins. Hiding doesn't seem like an option anymore." He felt her smile against his shoulder. "For what it's worth, as far as accidental husbands go, you're not the worst I could have ended up with." High praise. Don't let it go to your head. But her arms tightened around him slightly. "How far to this bunker?" "At normal speeds? 2 hours. At my speeds." He opened the throttle wider. 20 minutes. The bike roared through the desert night, eating up miles of sand and stone. Above them, stars wheeled in unfamiliar patterns. Or perhaps they'd always been like that, and Zed was only now seeing them clearly. Everything was changing. He could feel it in the energy humming between him and the woman at his back, in the way the world seemed sharper and stranger with each passing moment. Old certainties were crumbling, replaced by questions he wasn't sure he wanted answered. Who was he really? What was this power flowing through him? And why did holding Wynn feel like coming home? The answers were out there, hidden in his missing memories, in prophecies he didn't understand, in the vast empire waiting among the stars. But for now, there was just the night, the road, and the warmth of her arms around him. It would have to be enough. The military bunker loomed out of the pre-dawn darkness, its steel doors built into the side of a mesa. Colonel Jack Harrison was already waiting outside, his weathered face illuminated by a single floodlight. "You always did have a talent for trouble, Troy," the colonel said as Zed cut the bike's engine. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of Wynn, but he kept his composure. "Ma'am." "Colonel Harrison," Wynn inclined her head with natural grace. "Your former subordinate speaks highly of you." "Does he now?" Harrison's eyes crinkled with amusement. "Must be thinking of a different subordinate. Mine was a royal pain in the ass." The colonel led them inside, through a series of heavy security doors. The bunker was a Cold War relic, retrofitted with modern tech. Monitors lined the walls showing feeds from satellite cameras and various sensors. "You've been busy," Zed observed. "Someone has to keep an eye on things." Harrison gestured to a wall of screens showing multiple UFO sightings. Like that transport ship raising hell over your place an hour ago. About that, Zed started. Save it for the bourbon. Harrison pressed his palm to a scanner, opening another door. Let's get your lady friend settled first. The living quarters were sparse but comfortable. Several bedrooms, a common area, and a fully stocked kitchen. Harrison had clearly prepared for long-term guests. Rest, Zed told Wynne, helping her to one of the bedrooms. You're safe here. She caught his hand before he could leave. Don't take too long. We have much to discuss. The way she said it sent a shiver down his spine. He followed Harrison to his office, where the older man was already pouring 2 glasses of expensive bourbon. So, Harrison said, sliding 1 glass across his desk, want to tell me why you're harboring alien royalty? Zed took a long drink. Would you believe I accidentally married her? Kid, after what I've seen you do over the years, I'd believe anything. Harrison leaned back in his chair. Tell me everything. So Zed did. The crash, the healing, the assassins, all of it. Harrison listened without interrupting, only raising an eyebrow at the more incredible parts. Always knew you were different, the colonel said when Zed finished. From that first day in basic, when you broke every physical record we had. Remember what I told you then? Some secrets are better kept, Zed quoted. You covered for me. Made sure the brass didn't look too closely. Because I'd seen what happens to people who are different. Harrison's face darkened. The tests, the experiments. Couldn't let that happen to my best soldier. Is that why you recruited me for the special ops team? Partly. Figured if you were going to be different, might as well put it to good use. Harrison poured them both another drink. Never imagined you'd end up married to an alien queen, though. That makes 2 of us. Zed stared into his glass. There's more, though. Things I can't explain. Powers I shouldn't have. And when I touch her, the energy you mentioned? Yeah, but it's not just energy. It's like remembering something I never knew I forgot. He rubbed his temples. And she thinks I'm some kind of god. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Are you? Don't be ridiculous. Kid, I've seen you dodge bullets, heal from wounds that should have killed you, move faster than any human possibly could. The colonel leaned forward. Maybe it's time to stop asking what you're not and start asking what you are. Before Zed could respond, an alarm blared through the bunker. Harrison moved to his monitors, fingers flying over keyboards. Multiple bogies, he reported. Not the same ships as before. Different energy signatures. Wynne appeared in the doorway, still pale but standing straight. The resistance. They received my beacon. 3 sleek vessels descended from the clouds, their designs more elegant than the brutal transport ship from earlier. They landed with precision in the desert around the bunker. Friends of yours? Harrison asked. The remnants of my royal guard. Wynne's silver eyes fixed on Zed. And our ticket home. Home? The North Empire. Our empire now. She stepped closer to him. You claimed the throne. You must claim it properly. Harrison whistled low. From desert hermit to space emperor. You don't do anything halfway, do you, kid? The bunker's external cameras showed figures emerging from the ships, tall, blue-skinned warriors in ceremonial armor. Their weapons were holstered, hands raised in a gesture of peace. I should meet them, Wynne said. But first. She turned to Harrison. Colonel, I request privacy with my consort. There are matters we must discuss. Harrison's weathered face broke into a knowing grin. Say no more, Your Majesty. I'll handle our guests. He clapped Zed on the shoulder as he passed. Try not to break anything important. The moment the door closed, Wynne's formal demeanor melted. She practically glided across the room to Zed, her movements liquid grace. You've been avoiding me, she accused softly. I've been letting you rest. Is that the only reason? Her fingers traced the line of his jaw, sending sparks of that strange energy through them both. Or are you afraid of what happens when we touch? When? The claiming bond grows stronger, she whispered. You feel it too, the pull between us. He did. God help him, he did. It was like gravity, like magnetism, like something written into the very atoms of his being. This isn't just political, she continued. The ancient laws aren't mere tradition. When a queen chooses her consort, or when fate chooses for her, there is a deeper magic at work. Magic? Zed tried to scoff, but his voice came out rough. I don't believe in magic. No? Her other hand pressed against his chest, right over his heart. Then explain this. Energy surged between them stronger than before. Zed gasped as images flooded his mind. Strange cities of crystal and light, battles among the stars, faces he almost recognized. He pulled away, breathing hard. What was that? Memory. Wyn's silver eyes seemed to glow. Or perhaps prophecy. The lines blur when it comes to you. I'm just a soldier. Are you? She stepped closer again. Then why can you channel royal energy? Why do the ancient powers respond to your touch? Why do I feel like I've known you for 1,000 lifetimes? Before he could answer, she pressed her lips to his. The world exploded into light. Energy coursed through them, around them, between them. Zed saw impossible things. Vast empires rising and falling, civilizations born among the stars, powers that defied comprehension. And through it all, her. Different faces, different names, but always her. When they finally broke apart, they were both trembling. Now do you understand? Wynn whispered against his lips. This isn't chance. This isn't politics. This is destiny. I don't believe in destiny either. She laughed softly. Then believe in this. She took his hand and pressed it to her side, where her ceremonial armor had been damaged in the crash. There, on her blue skin, was a mark he hadn't noticed before, an intricate pattern that seemed to shift and move under his touch. The moment his fingers made contact, more images flooded his mind. But these were different, darker. He saw vast armies clashing among the stars, felt the weight of unimaginable power, heard voices crying out in worship and fear. He jerked his hand away. The royal mark, Wynn said quietly. Only the true consort can activate it. She studied his face. What did you see? Nothing, he lied. Just energy. The energy between them pulsed like a living thing. Wynn's silver eyes met his, dark with desire and something deeper. Recognition, perhaps, of something ancient and unspoken. Stay with me tonight, she whispered, her blue fingers tracing patterns on his chest. Before war claims us again. Zed knew he should resist, should focus on the dangers ahead. But this felt right in a way nothing else had, like remembering rather than discovering. That night, as their bodies joined in the darkness of the bunker, strange energies danced around them. Ancient power meeting mortal passion. Neither knew it then, but they were creating something unprecedented, a bridge between two worlds. Harrison's voice came over the intercom. Your Majesty, your guards are getting antsy out here. Wynn sighed. We must go. The resistance can't maintain position long without drawing attention. She touched Zed's face again, more gently this time. But this conversation isn't over. Looking forward to it, he muttered. She smiled, that mysterious, knowing smile that made his heart race. You should be. Outside, the resistance fighters knelt as Wynn appeared. Their armor was reminiscent of ancient samurai, but crafted from materials that seemed to drink in light. Rise, Wynn commanded. Her entire bearing had changed. Every inch the queen now. Report. The leader stood, removing his helmet to reveal angular features and silver-streaked hair. My queen. We've secured a corridor through Morvek's blockade, but it won't last long. The Chancellor has rallied significant forces. Of course he has. Wynn's voice was cold. Tell me of the capital. Fallen, Your Majesty. Morvek controls the central spires. He's using... The warrior hesitated. He's using forbidden technology, ancient artifacts from the god vaults. Zed noticed how Wynn's shoulders tensed at that. Which vaults? The sealed chambers beneath the Crystal Palace. He found a way in. Impossible, Wynn breathed. Those chambers have been sealed for millennia. The genetic locks were bypassed. The warrior's expression darkened. Morvek has changed himself, enhanced his body with technologies we thought lost to time. Harrison, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. Mind filling in those of us who don't speak space politics? Who exactly is this Morvek character? Wynn's silver eyes flashed. Once, he was my father's most trusted advisor, a brilliant man who helped modernize our empire. Her voice turned bitter. Now he's a traitor who murdered my family and tried to kill me. But why? Zed asked. What's his endgame? Power. Wynn started pacing, her movements like liquid mercury. But not just political power. He believes our empire has grown soft, that we've forgotten our true nature. She paused. He wants to restore what he calls the old ways, which are conquest, domination. Before the reforms, before the peace treaties, the North Empire was different, more brutal. We were warriors who believed might made right. She met Zed's eyes, until something changed us. More images flashed through Zed's mind. Battles, bloodshed, and then light, peace. A hand extended in mercy rather than violence. Your father changed things, he guessed. My father continued what was started long ago. Wynn's gaze was intense. By the one who first taught us there was another way, the God who chose mercy over power. The warrior commander cleared his throat. My queen, we must move. Our window of escape narrows. Wynn nodded. Prepare for departure. She turned to Harrison. Colonel, you have our thanks. Always happy to help with an alien civil war, Harrison drawled. He looked at Zed. You sure about this, kid? Zed glanced at Wynn, felt that inexplicable pull between them. No choice. Where she goes, I go. There's always a choice. Harrison's weathered face was serious. But sometimes the right one feels like it was made for us long ago. He extended his hand. Watch your six out there, soldier. Zed gripped his old commander's hand. You too, sir. The resistance ships were marvels of engineering, their interiors a blend of organic curves and crystalline technology. Zed felt a strange familiarity as he boarded, like déjà vu, but stronger. The Royal Flagship, Wynn explained as they entered the largest vessel. Or what's left of it. Most of our fleet remains loyal to Morvek. How many support you? Enough to fight, not enough to win. She led him to what appeared to be a command center. Not without you. Me? I'm not exactly up to speed on space warfare. Wynn's smile was enigmatic. You will be. She pressed her hand to a crystal panel and the ship hummed to life around them. It's in your blood, in your soul, even if you don't remember yet. Before Zed could question that, alarms blared throughout the ship. On the main view screen, multiple contacts appeared, warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Morvek, the commander spat. He must have traced the beacon. Time to go, Wynn ordered. Maximum burn. Get us out of the atmosphere. The ship surged upward, pressing them back against gravity compensators that couldn't quite keep up. Through the view screens, Zed watched Earth fall away beneath them. His home, his refuge, now just another blue marble in the vast dark. Having second thoughts? Wynn asked softly. About leaving? No. He met her silver eyes. About everything else? Constantly. Her laugh was like wind chimes. Good. A king who never doubts is a fool. She took his hand, sending more of that strange energy coursing between them. But doubt doesn't mean hesitation. Are you ready to fight for your throne, Zed Troy? He squeezed her hand, feeling the power pulse between them. I'm ready to fight for you. The ships jumped to FTL, leaving Earth and its mysteries behind. Ahead lay the North Empire, a civil war, and answers to questions Zed wasn't sure he wanted to ask. But with Wynn's hand in his, he thought maybe, just maybe, he was ready to face them all. The capital planet of the North Empire burst into view as the ships dropped out of FTL, a world of crystalline spires and floating gardens that made Earth's greatest cities look like children's building blocks. Welcome home, Wynn said softly. But Zed barely heard her. The sight of those impossible towers triggered another cascade of images in his mind. The same spires, but crude and war-torn, surrounded by armies, and himself, walking among them, taking the hands of warriors like a parent with squabbling children, showing them another way. He shook his head, dispelling the vision. Quite a place you've got here. It was more beautiful before Morvek's coup. Wynn's voice hardened as she gestured to scattered regions of darkness in the gleaming cityscape. Those areas were cultural centers, museums, gardens. He destroyed anything he deemed soft. Their flagship descended through layers of security screens, escort ships forming a protective formation. As they dropped below the cloud layer, Zed got his first close look at the city. The towers weren't just glass. They were made of some kind of flowing metal that seemed alive, constantly shifting to maintain structural integrity. Gardens cascaded down their sides, filled with plants in impossible colors. Small creatures that looked like six-limbed monkeys moved with eerily intelligent purpose among the vegetation. Thought gibbons, Wynn explained, following his gaze. Semi-sentient. They help maintain the hanging gardens. Before Zed could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Multiple vessels emerged from behind the planet's largest moon, warships, their weapons already charging. Morvek's welcoming committee, the commander reported grimly. They've locked onto our position. Evasive maneuvers, Wynn ordered. Get us to the surface. The ship dove sharply, weaving between energy beams that could have vaporized small cities. 2 escort vessels exploded, but their sacrifice bought precious seconds. They crashed more than landed in what appeared to be an abandoned temple complex. Zed helped Wynn from the smoking wreckage as enemy troops began converging on their position. The Temple of Ascension, she said, recognizing their surroundings. How fitting. Fitting how? But she had no time to answer. The first wave of Morvek's enhanced soldiers attacked, cybernetically augmented warriors wielding weapons that shouldn't have existed. Zed moved without thinking, faster than ever before. Each punch, each dodge felt like remembering rather than learning. His body knew these rhythms, these patterns of combat that were ancient when humanity's ancestors were still in trees. They fought their way into the temple proper, resistance fighters falling one by one until only Zed and Wynn remained. And then, in a chamber of crystal and light, they found him. Morvek was barely recognizable as Narth anymore. Ancient technology had transformed him into something monstrous, half flesh, half machine, crackling with energies that hurt to look at. The prodigal queen returns, he sneered, and this is your chosen king, a human. He is more than that, Wynn declared. He is, I know what he is. Morvek's augmented eyes fixed on Zed, or rather, what he was, before they took his memory, before they made him small. More images flashed through Zed's mind, battles among the stars, ages of darkness, and then teaching, guiding, showing a warrior race that there was strength in mercy. Enough riddles, Zed growled. This ends now. Morvek smiled, a horrible thing on his transformed face. Yes, it does. The blast caught Zed square in the chest. Energy from the god vaults themselves, power that could unmake stars. He felt his body failing, heard Wind scream of anguish, and then darkness. In the void between life and death, Zed walked through absolute darkness. Time had no meaning here. Space was a distant memory. Then he saw them, massive doors that seemed to stretch into infinity, light seeping through their edges. They were familiar somehow, like something from a dream long forgotten. He pushed against them, but they wouldn't budge. Again, harder, straining against their impossible weight. Still nothing. Then he heard Wind's voice, distant but clear. "Come back to me." Something stirred in him, not just memory, but truth. His truth. With a roar that shook the foundations of reality, Zed threw his full strength against the doors. They burst open in an explosion of light, and everything came rushing back. The first cycle, Earth in its infancy, his kind, the first ones, the originals, living in peace until violence shattered their paradise. The dark ages that followed. He remembered wandering the cosmos, finding the Narth, a species of warriors trapped in endless conflict. Remembered teaching them another way, showing them that true strength lay not in domination but in protection. They had called him Father, Teacher, God. But the other first ones had feared his influence. They couldn't kill him. Nothing could truly kill their kind, but they could bind him, trap him in cycles of rebirth until he forgot himself. Until now. Zed's eyes snapped open in the temple chamber. His body rose from the floor, power radiating from him in waves that made reality itself tremble. Impossible, Morvek breathed. The binding was permanent. Nothing is permanent. Zed's voice resonated with ancient power, except change. The battle that followed was beyond mortal comprehension. Morvek wielded stolen godly power like a child playing with fire. Zed wielded the real thing. The false god king never stood a chance. When it was over, Wynn approached him cautiously. "You remember everything now?" "Yes." Zed looked at his hands, hands that had shaped civilizations. "I remember who I am, what I am." "And what happens now?" There was fear in her voice, not of him, but of losing him. Before he could answer, the air shimmered. 3 figures appeared, beings of light and power that hurt to look at directly. "Brother," the first one said, "it is time to return." "Your experiment with these mortals has gone on long enough," said another. "The binding is broken," added the third. "You must resume your place among us." Zed felt the pull of his true nature, the call of infinite power and knowledge. But he also felt something else, Wynn's hand slipping into his. "I'm carrying your child," she whispered, "the first of its kind in millennia." The first one stirred at this. A hybrid? Impossible. "With him, nothing is impossible," Wynn said proudly. "That's why you feared him, isn't it? Because he could change things, could make the impossible possible." "Choose wisely, brother," the first being warned. "Godhood or mortality, there is no middle ground." But Zed smiled, remembering his mother's words from the first cycle. "No living thing should suffer if we can prevent it." "You're wrong," he said. "There's always another way." He reached out with his power, not to destroy or dominate, but to transform, to change. Divine energy flowed out of him, not gone but transformed, diminished yet focused, enough to protect, enough to guide, enough to love. "What have you done?" the beings demanded. "Chosen my path." Zed pulled Wynn closer. "I will keep enough power to protect my family and this empire. The rest, I release. Let it flow back into the cosmos where it belongs. This is unprecedented." "That's kind of my thing," Zed smirked. The first ones conferred among themselves. their light flickering with agitation. Finally, they turned back to him. So be it. But know this. What you have begun here will have consequences beyond imagining. Good, Zed said. It's about time things changed again. They vanished, leaving Zed and Win alone in the shattered temple. She touched his face gently. Are you sure about this? You've given up so much. I've gained more. His hand rested on her abdomen, feeling the tiny spark of new life there, a perfect blend of mortal and divine. Besides, somebody has to teach the next generation how to do things differently. 1 year later, the Crystal Palace of the North Empire gleamed in the light of twin suns, its architecture now a perfect blend of ancient strength and modern grace, much like the Empire itself. Inside the royal chambers, Zed stood at a window, watching the thought gibbons tend to the hanging gardens. In his arms, his infant daughter cooed softly, her skin a lighter shade of blue than her mother's, her eyes shifting between silver and earth brown. Little Aurora, named for the dawn of a new age. Still brooding? Wynne asked, wrapping her arms around them both. Her crown sat casually on a nearby table. These days, she wore it only for formal occasions. Reflecting, Zed corrected. The Empire's changed so much in just a year. And it had. With Morvek's defeat, the old factional lines had blurred. Those who once demanded pure North bloodlines now bowed to a half-divine princess. Warriors who lived for conquest found new purpose in exploration and protection. The God Vaults remained sealed but not forgotten. Their power was studied carefully now, under strict oversight. Knowledge without reckless ambition. Any word from your siblings? Wynne asked carefully. They're keeping their distance, but watching. Zed smiled. I think we make them nervous. Good. Wynne took Aurora, who immediately reached for her mother's silver hair. They could use some shaking up. A soft chime announced a visitor, Commander Kylar, the warrior who had led the resistance. Now he served as head of the royal guard. My king, my queen, he bowed. The Earth delegation has arrived. Zed grinned. How's Harrison handling the space travel? The colonel seems enthusiastically overwhelmed, Your Majesty. Just like the rest of Earth, Wynne noted. Are you sure revealing ourselves to them so soon was wise? They were ready, Zed said. Besides, somebody has to keep an eye on my first home while we manage things here. Aurora made a sound that might have been a laugh. Above her crib, the mobile of stars and planets spun gently, responding to power she didn't yet understand. She'll be stronger than either of us, Wynne said softly, and wiser, hopefully. Zed touched his daughter's cheek. She'll have what I didn't, knowledge of who she is from the start. No more lost memories. And the other first ones? We'll have to adapt, just like everyone else. He pulled his family close. That's what we do best, after all. Change, grow, learn. Through the window, the city sparkled with possibility. Ships from a dozen worlds moved through the sky lanes, Earth vessels among them now. In the Temple District, the old writings were being restored, but with new additions. The story of a god who chose love over power, of a queen who helped him remember who he was, of a child who would bridge worlds. Ready to face another day of royal duties? Wynne asked with a smirk. With you? Always. Zed kissed her, feeling that familiar energy spark between them. Weaker than his old power, but somehow more precious. Aurora giggled, her tiny hands glowing with silver light. The future was unwritten. There would be challenges, threats, moments of doubt. But they would face them together. The former god who chose mortality, the queen who helped him remember love, and their daughter who represented hope for all worlds. The new cycle had begun. Dear Starborn, In every cycle of existence, there are moments that define us, choices between power and love, duty and desire, the divine and the deeply human. Zed and Win's story is one such moment, echoing across the cosmos. But perhaps you've sensed it too, that flicker of something greater within yourself, that feeling that you might have lived 1,000 lives before this one. Maybe, like Zed, you're just beginning to remember who you truly are. After all, who's to say the first ones aren't watching us right now, smiling at how we retell their tales? Until our paths cross among the stars, your storyteller. P.S. The Thought Gibbons send their regards.